Hi, I'm Jeffrey, and we're back again for part 2 of our video on the Power to Fly Fenix XC Lite trike from Power to Fly from Portugal. We'd like to give a big shout out to Miguel and all the crew at Power to Fly, and we'd also like to give a huge thanks to Darren and Alan and Carolina PPG for the excellent service that we've gotten over the past couple of months while we ordered the trike. In our first part of the video, we did the cage assembly and got the entire trike put together, and everything's up and going and rolling. And this part we'll be doing the engine installation. And so we've got a couple of tools here we're just going to take a quick picture of and kind of give you an idea, mostly metric wrenches, 8s, 10s, 13, 14s, 17s, some Allen wrenches, some pliers, and of course a funnel. And that should just about cover us everything on the engine installation. So first step we're going to do is actually take the engine and hang it on the trike. Just to let you know, the bolts for the engine already came pre-installed in the engine spine. I think I mentioned that in part 1. So there's 2 bolts here. This is going to take a 6mm Allen wrench, and it's going to take a 13mm wrench for the nut. So we'll pull these 2 bolts out of their respective places. We're going to hang the engine, which is already mounted on the frame. That frame is going to hang onto the spine here, and then we'll get started on our engine installation video. Stay tuned. Definitely helps to have 2 hands when you're doing this installation. I've got Jacob here helping me today. Swap sides with me. To install the engine, we're going to need a 6mm Allen wrench, and we're also going to need a 13mm open end wrench for the nut. Jacob's going to tighten both of these down, and while he gets that done, our next step is going to be to hook up the fuel line from the tank down here at the bottom. There's one fuel line, and the bulb is already attached to the frame. There's a nipple on the gas tank we're going to remove. We're going to press this fuel line down on the nipple. It's a barb fitting, so it's going to take some doing to get this thing on. Once we get this installed, the fuel line that comes out from the top is going to come up. Right here on the carburetor. There's also another red cap. This will need to be removed. And this is where our fuel line is going to tie into here. Make sure you route the fuel line away from everything so it doesn't bind or rub. And this is going to take some persuasion as well. It's a super tight fit, which is the way we want it. And make sure you get it all the way up on the carburetor. Perfect. All right. You got the engine bolted down tight? Perfect. After we get the engine bolted down, you see what it looks like on the trike. Let's go ahead and move a few things around here so we don't snag anything. Okay, after the engine has been installed, the 2 bolts have been tightened down, the fuel line's been connected at the tank and also at the carburetor. Our next step is to install our gear oil and our reduction drive. The reason we're doing this now at this stage in the game is the Airbox, the radiator, all this is going to complicate the situation. You can't access the field with the Airbox installed. So now's the time that we're going to install our gear oil. This is a Motul trans oil. It's a 10W40. It takes 250 milliliters, and that's what's included in the bottle from Vitarazi. So if you ever need to drain this and reinstall gear oil at the service intervals, Motul Transoil 10W40 is what you're going to need. Up here at the top, this is a 17 millimeter. This is our fill here. So we're going to take this. I've already loosened it with a wrench, so I'm taking it out with my hands. Okay, and there is a copper washer, a crush washer. Be careful we don't lose that. So this is going to be taken out. Down here in the middle of our gear drive, this is an 8 millimeter wrench. Grab a wrench and move it. There's also a copper crush washer on this. What this is our sight window basically. This tells us if it's full or not. So when the oil gets to this point and starts to leach out, then we know that we've got enough oil installed. If you zoom here to the bottom, you can see this is an Allen head, I believe a 6 millimeter. This is our drain plug, okay? So we might want to double check to make sure this is tight before we install our oil. And but this is where you're going to take this out to drain the oil if we're ever going to replace it at our service interval. So let's go ahead, we'll get a funnel, we'll get our oil, and we'll go ahead and pour this in, and hopefully we'll see a little bit seep out right here, and that way we know that we're full, and then we'll replace this, and this will have everything done right here. Be right back. Okay, we've got the oil filled up for the radiator, and like I say, this bolt right here, this is going to be your fill level. What we had to do after we put all of our oil in at our top fill, got the 250 milliliters in, we actually picked up the tire on the front just ever so slightly, and you can see oil starting to leach out this hole, so we knew that we were full. We put this back in with a 8 millimeter, made sure that that was tight. We also double checked our drain down here at the bottom. We didn't take it out, but we made sure that it was tight as well. That's a 5 millimeter Allen wrench. And then up top, this is a 14 millimeter wrench, and that was our fill. And so that's where everything's tight. Our next step is going to be to install the radiator. If you see on the top, this bracket has already been installed from the factory on the engine cradle. And so this is where our radiator is going to sit. There's 3 holes right here. We also have a couple of hoses that are already set and ready to go. And so we'll scan over here. Jacob's got our radiator, and flip that radiator around. This is going to be facing the front, and if you notice here at the bottom, our 3 holes, 1, 2, and 3. This one in the middle, we're going to make sure we put Loctite because there's threads going into this aluminum rod. The other 2 are going to have nuts on them, so no Loctite is needed. So go ahead and install that radiator at the top. I'm going to back up, and Jacob's going to get that going. Here where my hand is are the 2 connections for the hoses, and pretty sure you can't get that mixed up. The shorter hose obviously is going to go at the bottom. Your longer hose is going to go up at the top. And once Jacob gets these 3 screws in and get them tightened down, we'll install clamps on our hoses and button the radiator install up. While we're waiting on that to happen, up here at the top is our fill reservoir, and you'll notice the tip sticking out, and that's going to be an overflow hose. It's going to connect there, and we're going to route that down the side of the frame and have it dump out at the bottom of the chassis, just in case this thing gets hot and wants to overflow. It's going to run out of that down the hose and safely away from you. You don't want to get scalding hot water on you while you're flying. That would be a no-no. Okay, while Jacob's finishing up on that, I want to come over here and show you, if you're looking in your box of goodies and you see this strange thing here and kind of wondering what it is, what this is a cover. And so if you fly in cold weather, this thing will Velcro right through the center section of your radiator and cover up part of your radiator. That way you won't have to make sure that your engine gets up to operating temperature. But this is not going to be used for us. We're in South Georgia. It never gets that cold around where we're at, so that's probably going to get just thrown over in the corner, and doubtfully it'll ever get used. The next step that we're going to need is we're going to get these 2 clamps that are included for our radiator hoses to connect those, and also you're going to find a length of hose here in your bag of goodies, and like I say, we're going to use that for our overflow. So Jacob will grab those 2 clamps, slide them on the 2 hoses. You're going to see here make sure you put the clamp on first, please.
Yep.
And those will slide up on the hose. He's going to install that on the radiator, slide it all the way up. And these clamps take pliers. There's not a screw clamp. You get your pliers and squeeze those together till it clips and clicks into place. And then you know that you've got it installed correctly. While he's doing that, I'm going to take and we'll just hook this over. Can you hook that right there? And this is going to be our overflow hose. I'm going to have to do a little looking and digging around, and that hose, like I say, is pretty long. You'll see it reach all the way down to the floor. But we're going to find a really neat way to route that hose and make sure it's not in the way of the pull start. Make sure it's not sitting on the radiator itself and getting hot and melting. Make sure it's not on the exhaust system or tangled up. We'll probably zip tie it down here and have it run out on the ground somewhere, and that way that'll be taken care of there as well. I'll come around here and show you. These were a 4 millimeter, and on the underside is a 10 millimeter nut, and this was a 4 millimeter Allen bolt that runs into this aluminum tube, and so this is where we put our Loctite here on this particular bolt. While you're at it, it never hurts to make sure you check all your connections. Make sure all the other bolts are tightened from the factory, because all this was done at the factory, and so it never hurts to double check everything that was done there as well. After this radiator is installed, what comes included is this blue antifreeze. I believe we're going to have a antifreeze that's safe on an aluminum engine, but this is what comes from Vitarazi, so this is what they recommend. It gives you some mixtures there on the front, depending on how cold it gets where you're at. So we're going to pour this entire bottle in our radiator and just fill up the rest with water, and I believe we'll be fine for the temperatures that we're going to be operating at. So we'll button up this radiator install. We're going to put water in it and fill it up, and we'll be right back at you. Okay, we got the radiator fluid poured in. We ended up using half of the container of the antifreeze that was sent to us. Well, actually a little bit more than half. And then we added as much water to it to fill up our system. Let me show you one thing here, because a lot of people will miss this. Right here on the top side of the engine cylinder is a 8 millimeter bolt, and it'll have a little brass washer. If Jacob picks up a little bit there, this thing is, we've got it loose. Do you see the water? And that water is easing out just a little bit right there. What this is a way to burp the system. And so as we're pouring water in, we're going to back this screw out. Do not make the mistake of taking the screw completely out of the engine. You'll be filling it up and water will just start to roll out of this, and you'll have a mess on your hands. So what you want to do as you're filling it up is slow to go down up here at the top. And so when this fluid is just kind of hanging out, you know that it needs to take some more. If you crack open this bolt here, what that does is let air through the system. And once you start to get some of this water to creep out a little bit, right, you know that air is coming out of the system with it. And so that's a good thing. And so keep you some paper towels handy to keep this cleaned up. And we got it to where all the air is out of the system. We're going to tighten this 8 millimeter bolt back down. We don't want to get it too tight and wring it off in the cylinder head. That would be bad. And if you also notice, our level here is at the max level. Now here's what the manual recommended. The first time we crank this engine up, we're going to leave the radiator cap off. And so when we fire this engine up, we're only going to let it run for just a few seconds. We'll notice that this level, if it changes any, it's going to circuit through. We're able to add more, put the radiator cap back on it, then we can proceed with breaking in the engine there. So that'll save you the trouble to have to read everything that I did. Also notice while we're looking at it, you've got a foam plug right there in your exhaust pipe. Obviously that's not supposed to be there. That's just there for shipping purposes. And so kind of like sticking a banana in your tailpipe, engine's not going to run real well with that in there. So we're going to leave it there for the time being, but make sure we remove that before we fire the engine up. All right, so the radiator's taken care of. It's been bolted down. I double checked all the bolts. You notice there's a little play there. There are rubber mounts there that allow this thing to vibrate and move around. And so all the connections are done. We double checked all the connections that was done at the factory to make sure that water wasn't leaking out of that and everything was a-okay with all of that. So the next step we're moving on is to our electrical. Okay, down here at the bottom, you'll see the factory box was installed, and there's an on-off switch. There's an LED light. This is the battery connection that's coming out, and we had three other, connections as well that we've got to take care of. And so we're going to let Jacob grab the battery, and we're going to show you how to install the battery to plug it in where all of these connections need to be made, and that'll take care of our electrical. Stay tuned. Okay, our next step is to handle all of our electrical connections. First thing I want you to notice, this is a Horizon Hobby charger that comes with the kit. You'll also notice here on the end, this charger is a European plug. So when you get this charger, this is not going to plug into your wall socket in your American household. And so we have an adapter here. This adapter was provided to us by Carolina PPG. And so make sure if you're getting this unit that you account for this. Otherwise you're going to be sorely disappointed when you go to charge your battery. And so that's going to take care of that aspect of it. The charger comes with instructions, and I beg you, I plead with you to make sure that you read those instructions and understand how these chargers work. These are lithium batteries. This is something that's used in the hobby industry for electric RC airplanes and RC drones, and these things can be very volatile if not handled correctly. And so make sure that you read the instructions and understand how this thing needs to be charged and how it needs to be handled and taken care of. Here is a little bag with a Velcro strap on it. This battery is going to slide down in to the bag, and then we're going to mount the battery. If you notice here, our tank mount on the back, we're going to slide right where my finger goes behind this gas tank. We're going to mount that battery here. You'll see that the connections are going to tie together here. We have our on-off switch. This is going to be a master power with a LED light. And if you come around to the right-hand side, you'll see here, zero in. This will be our lower engine mount on the right-hand side. Right directly above that is a 5mm Allen head screw. It's already got some torque paint on it from the factory. We're going to take this screw out, and this is where we're going to install our ground. So you're going to have a black wire here with this round connector. We're going to take that bolt off and install our ground there. You'll notice right above that here in the wiring harness, nice and neat, is this pin connector, and we have a red female pin connector that's going to tie in here, and that'll take care of that connection. And then our last connection down here is a spade connection, and coming off of that wiring harness down here to the bottom, you're going to notice this plug. So these two are going to mate together, and so that's going to take care of those three wires there. Make sure when you get all this done that you tidy it up nice and neat. This right here is our pull starter rope, so we don't want anything able to get into the pull start. We don't want anything sitting on the hot exhaust pipe at the back. And so make sure we tie all this up nice and neat, whether you use zip ties, wire loom, whatever you decide to use there. But just be cautious and avoid any of those situations. All right, I'll get Jacob to start on this. He's going to tie that together. He's going to hit the other three connections, and we'll be back in a jiffy. Okay, we're back. Our next step after we've got all the electrical done is install the spark plug. This is an NGK BR9ES plug, as Jacob is showing us there. This comes included with the package. Jacob's going to pull the spark plug out, and I thought it was pretty neat. They test run these engines at the factory. You see that spark plug's not brand new. It's actually been ran. So he's going to install that into the cylinder head, And while he installs that and gets the cap, I'm going to show you what we did with the throttle and choke cable. If you notice here at the back of the engine, this is the choke cable at the top, this is the throttle cable at the bottom. I highly recommend that you double check these set screws to make sure they're tight. This excess cable, I'm going to clip it off, but I'm not going to do it right now for the video, because I want to make sure that I've got my choke cable in a satisfactory location. I'm going to show you, I'm a left-handed throttle guy, so I'm going to show you how I ran my cables out and around. They come out, we're going to circle around. This bracket here in the back is the Velcro strap for the Airbox. So we're going to include both of our cables right here in that Velcro strap to keep them from sitting on the radiator. They're both ran around the side here. On my quick connect, I've installed my throttle cable here, and that's going to be hanging loose there. If you follow me around, this is my choke cable. It's ran across the back, and there is a screw already on the right hand side of this top cage. This comes factory here. I am not 100% sure that this is what this is intended for. It very well could even be for a right-handed throttle, but there's not one on the left-handed side. And we installed our choke cable here. This choke cable is a spring return, and so when you pull it, it returns automatically. And I'm going to put a couple of zip ties on both sides, so that's going to lock this cable down from moving in and out. But what I wanted to have was accessibility to the choke. If you ever have a situation where your stop switch, your kill switch, doesn't work any longer, this is an easy way to kill an engine. So if you've got a running engine and your kill switch is not working for whatever reason, pull this choke and hold it, and that's going to flood and choke the engine out and cause it to stop. And so I wanted this to be accessible from the pilot seat, and this is going to be in my right hand because I'm a left-handed throttle guy, like I said before. And so this is where we're going to mount the choke cable for now and see how we like it there. And once we do, we'll clip off that excess wire and take care of that. We're probably going to get some zip ties and tidy all this up a little bit better, just to our satisfaction. Obviously we don't want anything to be able to flop around, to touch anything and get hot and burn through, or much less get in the propeller arc. So that's going to take care of the throttle, the choke. Jacob is going to install the Airbox. He's going to pull that blue cap off that's come shipped from the factory. You're going to see right down in the carburetor there, everything's working correctly. And there's a clamp that comes, and on the bottom of the Airbox, it's going to take a Phillips head screwdriver. There are two pins. Did you show the pins? Here. There's a pin here and a pin there. If you flip that Airbox over, these rubber grommets is where it's going to clip in, and that's just to keep the vibrations, and it mitigates the Airbox from vibrating. So he's going to slide that on, pop it down on the two ball pins, tighten up the clamp, and that will take care of our Airbox installation. And our next step after that will be our propeller. Power to Fly ships us a 3-bladed propeller for the Cosmos 300, and you see we've already dry fitted together. We've already got the propeller hub and all the screws pushed through, and so we'll be picking it up and moving it over and bolting it down, and that'll get us taken care of there. On the back side here, as I mentioned earlier, there was a Velcro strap, and that Velcro strap is a safety strap, and what that does is hold that Airbox just in case the clamp and the pins come loose, that there is a strap to keep that Airbox from flailing around and going back in to the propeller while in use. And so we're going to try to make sure that we get both of the throttle and the choke cables installed underneath that Velcro strap along with the Airbox. I think that'll work out nice and neat and tidy on that. All right, we're getting there. The propeller is next, and I think that'll take care of us on this engine build. Stay tuned. All right, we got the propeller installed and tightened everything down. This is a beautiful, beautiful prop, beautiful work of art. Everything here turned out beautiful. I'm really excited about firing this thing up for the first time and breaking it in. I want to make sure that you like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Down in the comment section, the description, we're going to leave the links for all of the factory manuals from Viterazzi on the Cosmos 300. There's 3 different manuals. I highly recommend that you download those and read them. There's no way I can cover everything in this video. The next step, the next video is going to be a break-in video, and so I'll be touching over some of the subjects of how to fire this thing up for the first time and break it in. All that information, however, is in the manuals, so highly suggest you read those. Also down in the description, I'm going to leave you links for Darren and Alan at Carolina PPG. Those guys have been absolutely fantastic. We really appreciate them. Go to www.carolinapppg.com. Reach out to Darren. He can answer any questions or help you if you'd like to order one for yourself. So we're really excited about all of that. If you have any questions, if you have any comments, please leave them down in the comment section. We'll be glad to reply and to respond. If we got anything wrong, please correct us. If you saw anything that was done right, please let us know. So stay tuned for the next videos. We're really excited about firing this engine off and getting this trike up in the air. And we're going to leave you on that. We appreciate you watching and have a blessed day.